Alan is typing, not concentrating on what we should be doing.
Well, you're not concentrating because you're reading what I'm typing.
Good point, well made. User error 67. I'm Joe.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Dan.
And we're back with bad news, I'm afraid. Don't worry, the show's not ending. It's just the forum. So, Popey, you set this up and it just hasn't really taken off. I blame myself as much as anything else. I should have kind of spent more time there. But, because, activity begets activity on forums. And I don't know, just hasn't really worked out, has it?
No, it's fine. It didn't need to necessarily grow, but it didn't, so we'll shut it down.
Yeah, so use Twitter instead, I think is the best, or just the contact page generally, which is at error.show/contact. Twitter is at usererrorshow. That's kind of the best, or use the hashtag #AskError or whatever. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with us. But the forum will be going away shortly. I don't know exactly when. Maybe early next week or something. So this is going to be a hashtag #AskError special because we've got a bunch of cool questions. So let's start with the first one. How do you manage apps on your smartphone? So do you install stuff and leave it, or do you try it and remove it immediately? Do you have a bunch of apps that you never use, or is it really nice and slimmed down? Dan, how do you deal with it?
I have a super weird kind of anal retentive thing where I don't want any icons on the bottom row between the dock and the set of icons. So that's how I limit myself. I have to have things in folders, and folders are dumb if they only have 2 things in them. So I have to have like logical groups of things, and then it really makes no sense whatsoever, but it makes me delete apps. So that's how I do it.
So you don't hoard apps then, is the bottom line.
No, I got to get rid of them. I can't stand having and I have I have like every airline app ever, which is annoying, but it makes me so I can get the mobile boarding pass easier. But I've just got those stuffed in a folder somewhere. But other than that, I do my best to delete stuff I'm not using.
My home screen is a mass of groups, and in those groups are many, many icons. I started counting. I lost count after about 150 apps. So I think I've got somewhere in the region of 200 apps on my phone, and there are 25 groups on the homepage of my phone. And then there's the second screen on the right-hand side, which is the abyss of apps that I never actually use, which is kind of like a staging area for when they should go away. But I have tons and tons of apps. The basic criteria is if I had to sign up to something to use the app, it probably stays. But if it was just an app that you open and try something and then close it, then I feel happier about just throwing it away. But for some reason, if I've had to sign up for a service, I feel like I have to keep the app on my phone to remind me that if I'm going to get rid of that app, I probably need to delete my account as well on that service, which means I never do it. So I end up with 200 plus apps on my phone.
I'm somewhere in the middle, really. I try and delete them if I'm not using them, but I just find sometimes, like, why is that still installed, and then uninstall it. Like SkyMap, I haven't used that for, I can't remember how long. But I generally try to install as few apps as possible. So if I can just use a web app or a website, then I'll just try and do that first. But then if it gets really annoying, then I'll install the app for it. But everything wants you to install an app these days, which is just so annoying. Like, and how many times do I say to Reddit, no, fuck off, I'm not installing your app. I'll just proceed to the website or whatever.
That's one of my most used apps, actually, is not the official Reddit app, but the Reddit is Fun app, which is way better than the official Reddit app and gives you a more compact view. So that's one where I would use the app over the website.
I actually like the Reddit app. I know everybody hates it.
No, it takes up too much room on the screen. You can't fit many topics on screen at once.
I try and stay off Reddit as much as possible, so I am definitely not installing the app.
Unfortunately, the Reddit app is in a folder on my home screen called Time Wasting, along with SkyMap, Flight Radar 24, Imgur, ISS Detector, Rightmove when I want to browse and snoop on my neighbours' houses for sale, and Survival Manual, which I think I've mentioned before on the show, which is like if I ever want to know how to light a fire or build a jet engine, it's all in that manual.
Wow.
Right, a bit of a Linuxy one now. Why isn't AppImage part of the larger universal packaging discussion? I get the feeling you might have some opinions on this, Popey, because you're a Snap man. And Dan, you've recently incorporated Flatpaks into Elementary OS. So, yeah, why not AppImage, eh?
Depends who you talk to. Like, if you are an individual and you go surfing around some Git repos, often you will find a contribution from, we often colloquially call him the AppImage guy, who is pro bono on Twitter. I think Simon is his actual name. But he's a shadowy figure that works in AppImage. And he's really prolific in contributing to projects in order to get them to make app images of their applications. So, if you're a user browsing around or you're a developer looking for how would I package my application for Linux, you could be forgiven for thinking AppImage is super popular, because if you look in lots of repos, you'll find contributions that make app images out of projects. So I think it's a tricky question because it really depends on perspective.
I'm not going to be that generous. I'm coming from a perspective of someone who is in charge of making technical decisions as a platform, and also from the perspective of someone who really considered AppImage as the way that we might want developers to distribute their applications. And we looked into AppImage a very long time ago, and we came across a few problems. And the biggest problem with AppImage is it has no package manager. So the way that you get app images is you download them from the internet. And this is a huge step backwards in the way that users expect to get applications, especially users who are already coming from a package manager background, like Linux users, but also anybody who's coming from any modern operating system where they expect that applications are in some kind of app store. And in order to have an app store, you have to have a package manager.
Technically speaking, if you use a package manager, you're downloading them from the internet. I think what you mean is downloading them from the web.
Whatever.
Someone would have tweeted us about that if I didn't say it.
So the other perspective to look at it from is from the point of view of a developer, where you're looking at the different type of packaging formats and comparing them. And actually, if you side by side put the various packaging formats together, the AppImage guys have a compelling argument of you just download this file and you run it. Okay, it's very simple. It's very easy, but they're missing a whole load of functionality. Like, some would argue having a central store is a bad idea, but in our experience, having a central store is great for discovery, and it means a developer has one place to upload their file. And from a user point of view, it means they don't have to go around hunting down like PPA style random repositories that have software in. And it's amusing to us that we came up with the idea of having a central app store for snaps, and we were poo-pooed by the AppImage guys and poo-pooed by the Flatpak guys, who said, no. There doesn't need to be a central store. Everyone can just add these repos or download these files. And now there's FlatHub and there's AppImage Hub. So they've changed their tune and realized that actually you do need a central place to download your software. That's what users, as Dan said, users have that expectation. But there's so many other features, and I don't want to rattle them all off because it sounds like a massive sales pitch for snaps, but there's a ton of stuff that AppImage doesn't have that the others do. Both Flatpak and snaps do.
I think the other huge argument is that modern packaging formats like Snap and Flatpak are looking at sandboxing and security and containerization and preventing apps from leaking into the system. And it doesn't seem like this is a concern of AppImage. So it has all the drawbacks of being a kind of container format of like you have all the stuff in one package, right? But it has none of the benefits of like now that this thing is isolated from the environment, we have all these security benefits.
What? So you end up downloading all the dependencies and stuff that you need as part of it. So the downloads are huge, and so you get that downside, but you don't get the upside of containment.
Yeah, and I guess, the AppImage guys would say, well, you don't have to do it that way. You could still install all the dependencies from your package manager, but the AppImage doesn't communicate with the package manager in any way, so you don't really get any benefits there. And both Snap and Flatpak have solved this problem of having shared dependencies and also having a containerized packaging format.
To return to the original question as to why AppImage isn't part of the larger discussion, isn't that because you've got a reasonably big company in the form of Canonical behind Snaps and Red Hat pushing Flatpak, who is a huge company? whereas AppImage is more of a kind of community effort.
There's certainly a part of that, and that swings both ways. Like you've got Canonical behind snaps, which means some people absolutely don't like it because it's Canonical. But the flip side is Canonical hires people, to advocate for snaps to developers and to understand developers' needs and feed that back to our developers so that we can improve the product, right? AppImage has a few people. I don't know exactly how many shadowy figures because they have, but there's a few. It's like 3 or 4 people I see talking a lot in their IRC, and I've bumped into a couple of them at events. And they're just taking a different approach, right? But they are very much a grassroots project, but they've been around for a very long time. And so what does it say that AppImage has been around for so long and has a few people advocating for it, but it hasn't taken off? It can't just be that Canonical has thrown a ton of money at it. And some would argue it's not Red Hat that have thrown money at Flatpak, but there's also other companies like Endless, for example, who have put a lot of weight behind Flatpak as well, and other companies and projects as well. So if that's the case, why hasn't AppImage taken off? If it's that good, why didn't it take off?
AppImage has been around, I think, longer than Elementary OS has been around. And to the point about community, sure, you could say that, Alex is a Red Hat employee and he works on Flatpak, but Elementary didn't go with Flatpak because it was a Red Hat product. We went with Flatpak because that's what our community decided they were interested in. And FlatHub is a community project, not a Red Hat project. And like Alan said, there are other companies that are backing Flatpak. So I don't think it really is such a thing of who's backing it, but that it's just not as technically compelling.
I think the other part, which is the elephant in the room, is Simon's style, pro bono. His style is very adversarial, and that can put developers off. And we've spoken to developers in significant companies that you have heard of who have said the reason they don't use AppImage is because Simon was too abrasive. And if he is both the developer of the project and their core developer advocate, then that's not helping your project. It's like having Richard Stallman as the front man for your project. Like, he might be right, but you wouldn't put him in a sales meeting with people.
I would, just for the lulz.
So, Joe, here's the part where you tell us you use exclusively AppImages.
Well, no, here's the part where I tell you that Flatpaks never seem to work, and every AppImage I've ever downloaded has worked perfectly.
I've got one AppImage installed on my system, and one of the things I don't like about it is upgrades are a one-way thing. If you want to downgrade, they've integrated automatic updates. That's another thing that we were told by the AppImage guys is nobody wants automatic update. If someone wants an update, they can go and get it from the website, which is bullshit because users want the latest and greatest software. They don't want to have to go and hunt down some file on a random website and run setup.exe. Like, that's the past. You want the latest, freshest stuff every time you start work in the morning. And now the AppImage guys have added automatic update feature to AppImage, but it only goes one way. You can't roll back like you can with Snap. So if I get a new version of something and it doesn't work, I can just do snap revert VLC and it'll go back to the previous version. With AppImage, you have to go and hunt down the old AppImage if you can even find it, because some developers will just replace the version on the website with the new version. And so that's gone. You can't go backwards. So there are certainly some technical points that Flatpak and Snap have that AppImage doesn't. But I think a more serious problem is the approach that they have for being quite heavy-handed when they approach developers. One of the things that we always try not to do is to shit on the competition. Like, whenever someone announces that there's a Flatpak of a thing, you don't find us going, hey, you should make a Snap. Yet the opposite is not the case. Like, some company will announce that there's a Snap of this thing, and you will always see people in the comments underneath, hey, you should make a Flatpak. Hey, why don't you make an AppImage? Hey, why is AppImage not more popular? Right? And that is not the right way to approach developers.
Okay, how would you feel if cash went away? And I've got an ancillary question that we'll get to. Dan, how would you feel if there was no cash anymore?
So good. So good. You know how much it sucks when I'm like, oh, this looks like a really cool place to whatever thing they're trying to sell me. And then you go in and they're like, we're cash only. And then I walk out because I do not carry cash.
That answers my next question. How much cash do you usually carry?
Why would I have any paper money in my possession? It is so inconvenient.
Oh dear, oh dear. Poby, do you carry cash?
I think I have 20 quid on me at the moment, but that's because I was in London yesterday and we often walk down to Borough Market for lunch where there's lots of food trucks and little places that sell food made to order. And for a long time, a lot of them would only take cash. And I took some cash out yesterday and then walked along the line of all these little food trucks, and they all take swipe and they've all got like contactless and stuff now. So it's less of a problem. I do have to get cash out every so often for my son because he needs some for the shop at school. But and paying my daughter's dance teacher, we have to pay cash.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, no, there's not very many things. I had to get some cash out for paying some guys to fix a fence recently, like, you know, manual work. That often requires cash, but for the vast majority of the time, I leave the house without any cash and often without my wallet, and I just use my phone to pay for everything.
Yeah. So how would you feel if cash went away? You wouldn't be bothered?
I would be a little bit bothered because not for myself, but more on behalf of other people who rely on it. Because not everyone has the ability to have contactless, and some people live hand to mouth, and often it's cash based transactions, and they just don't have the opportunity to do everything contactless like we do. So I feel bad, not for myself, but I think it still should be a thing. But I can imagine in a dystopian Terminator style future where there are people begging on the street for cash because that's the only thing, or begging on the street for contactless cards rather to be able to pay for some food because nowhere takes cash anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. It is a dystopia to me if you've got no cash. Because, you know, what about the whole Stallman thing about if you buy things for cash, then no one can track you. Whereas if you pay for everything with your card, then there's this whole electronic paper trail showing exactly what you've bought, and you can be profiled, and that data is going to get leaked at some point or stolen. Whereas if you just always use cash, then there is no data.
Yeah, part of me worries about that, and then part of me thinks I'm only on this planet for 80 years, and after I'm dead, I don't really care if my data leaks, because like, who gives a shit if anyone found out that I spent an alarming amount of money on red wine at the co-op? Like, it's not going to matter.
I know it's horrible and counter to everything I've ever said, but I totally sign up for rewards programs to get discounts on things.
Yeah, whereas I don't know. I'm just quite a private person generally. And I just like to be able to buy things for cash when I want to. Most of the time I use contactless because it's just far quicker. But I don't know, just being able to do that. Like if you want to do anything dodgy, then, you know, like there's plenty of things that cash will buy you. I don't think we need to go into it, but not that I do any of that anymore. But just having that option is nice, that I can interact with people financially without anyone else knowing.
Isn't that what Bitcoin's for?
Well, not really, because Bitcoin's not even properly anonymous unless you mine it, I suppose, and then only spend Bitcoin. But the second it comes out of the Bitcoin system into fiat currency, then suddenly you can track it all the way back through the blockchain and everything. So it's not really anonymous.
You remind me of my mate Dave, who, when we went out for curry and I paid for my part of the bill using contactless, and his face as he looked across the table at me was like, "What the fuck are you doing, Alan? Why are you letting the man know?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm buying a curry."
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that I'm going to be a complete zealot about it. And as I said, I most of the time use contactless, but I wouldn't want cash to go away. I just wouldn't want that option to go away. Is the key thing here. Not that I use it very much, but just knowing that I can use it is what's important.
Right.
Right. Thoughts on meditation and mindfulness. Is it the best thing ever and should we all be doing it? Or is it complete fucking bullshit?
It sounds super hokey and it totally feels like a waste of time when you're doing it. But I absolutely 100% believe that taking just like a solid 1 to 2 minutes to just sit in silence, not say anything, is really nice. And then also doing the thing of being like, I'm going to have a really great day today. I believe in myself. I feel very confident that I can accomplish my goals. Like, it sounds really dumb,
Yes.
but when you do it, you actually feel good. It's like a weird psychological body mind hack thing. Like, it sounds stupid. It sounds so dumb. But if you actually try it, it totally works.
I have great difficulty with this. I'm willing to believe that sitting down and emptying your mind and getting into a comfortable position just for a few minutes and just stopping thinking about stuff, I can see how that might make me feel better. And I'm pretty confident that when I lay down and I do nothing, I tend to fall asleep. Like, I sometimes do this at my desk. It's not unheard of for me to just zone out for a bit at my desk and just, put my head back. I've got quite a comfy chair. And I don't think I intentionally try and empty my mind, but I do close my eyes. And that is a good facilitator to emptying my mind. But no, I'm very averse to the, you're an awesome person, Alan, in front of the mirror. No, I would not do that. I feel like there's a hidden camera show in that where people will be recording me and they go, look at this twat in front of the mirror, giving himself self-affirming sentences. What an idiot.
Do you actually say that shit to yourself, Dan?
I feel like if you're feeling really anxious about something or having a really hard time with something like that's when, for me, it feels helpful, where it's like something feels overwhelming or I'm having a lot of trouble with it. And so I'll sit down and say, hey, I got this. I can do this. This isn't that hard. I'm going to break this down into small chunks. And I know that if I do each thing one at a time, that by the end of the day, I'll have accomplished a lot of things. And I think that that's a good way to deal with like feelings of being overwhelmed and things like that. But if you don't need it, and if it's not helping you, like, obviously don't do it. But I think it's a totally good and valid way to help make you feel better about the things that you have to do.
You just said you like break tasks down. That's just a common sense way to compartmentalize your day and reduce large, seemingly difficult to do tasks down into reasonable bite-sized chunks that you can have a sense of accomplishment when you achieve each one, right? And that makes total sense to me. But actually saying out loud to myself, I'm going to break this task down. Woohoo! I've got 10 small tasks now. I feel, I would feel weird doing that.
Do you find it useful, Dan, when you're being bullied by two middle-aged English blokes on a podcast?
No, not right now, no. After the show, I'll sit there and be like, I'm a good podcaster. I can do a show and have a good time.
It feels very Californian, and I appreciate that. I think it's a bit of a cultural difference. I mean, it sounds like woo. It wouldn't surprise me if next time we record this show and Joe asks, hey, are healing crystals really a thing? And you're like, yeah, I've been using them for years.
Come on. No, that's totally different. It's a totally different thing.
Okay, that's different. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a life hack.
No. That's a wallet hack.
What about Organite?
What?
Oh, never mind. That's one of those bullshit things. My instinct is that meditation and mindfulness is just up there with crystals and Organite and other bullshit.
Well, it's free though. So who does it benefit besides yourself? Like, you could see the scam in like, oh, you want to trick somebody into thinking crystals are things you can get some money from them. But like, what benefit is there to tricking someone into like being quiet for a minute?
I know a lot of people who I'd like to.
Yeah, totally. There are some people who I would really appreciate if I could trick them into being quiet for a minute.
But if they're in their own home and you're not interacting with them in any way, you don't get to see it. You don't even know if they actually did it. Like, what's the benefit of tricking them into doing it? Not really anything.
Well, that's the cynical way to look at it. The other way is that whoever is pushing this stuff actually believes it's the real thing and it's just all a placebo effect, all kind of psychosomatic or whatever.
I think that's the point, is that it is a placebo.
Right. I see. It just seems like it'd be really fucking boring and my time would be spent better actually doing something useful rather than sitting there in silence.
It's 2 minutes of your life, Joe. Like, I mean, I'm turning now and I'm thinking of, actually 2 minutes is not a huge length of time to just be sat still and just not do anything, not have my phone out in front of me, not have the telly on, not have the radio on, but just sit on the sofa and just breathe and not do anything. But I find that incredibly hard to empty my head.
Yeah, but it's not about 2 minutes. I mean, Dan's talking about 2 minutes here, but if you do this thing properly, then there's people who do it for 10 days. All day long, literally just sit there doing nothing.
What, monks?
Well, originally, yes, but it tends to be kind of rich tech people who can afford to piss off for 10 days and not work.
Right. So like Bizstone and what's his face who run Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're just wankers, really.
Yeah, that's a complete waste of time. If you want to go on a vacation, take a hike, you don't need to sit there and do absolutely nothing for an extended period of time like that. That makes no sense.
Yeah, have a nice walk around in the mountains or whatever, yeah.
Right.
And reflect on things, but you don't have to. I don't know, the idea, my understanding at least, of meditation is that you clear your mind and just think of nothing. I mean, I would just end up thinking of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and he'd probably come and kill me. But it is very hard to think of nothing because your mind just drifts to stuff. And I can't see that any benefit that would come from it would be worth the effort of doing it. Maybe I'm just incredibly lazy, but I don't know. I'd rather just sit and look at Twitter for 5 minutes than sit doing fuck all.
It's quite a jump to say, I'm too lazy to sit still and do nothing. That's quite, do you not feel like that's quite a bizarre set of words to put in a sentence?
No, because it is an effort. You do have to concentrate. And physically, it may not be much of an effort, but then none of our jobs physically is an effort. If you're having a really hard day at work, any of us, then it's kind of brain dollars that you're spending, not, physical labor. And it's that kind of laziness, the laziness that stops you writing that report or whatever, that stops me doing meditation.
Interesting. I think for homework, you and I should try it. I think we should before the next user error. I mean, I've got a 7-hour flight to Canada and back, so I've got plenty of opportunity to sit and do nothing because I've got nothing to do while I'm sat on a plane.
For 1 week, take 1 minute of absolute silence and not even a full minute, 30 seconds of affirmations, and then tell me if it's complete bullshit afterwards.
Oh, hang on. No, I'm willing to get on board with the sitting in silence, but the affirmations, talking up myself.
Don't even do it out loud. Just do it in your head about whatever it is that you're struggling with. That's the point, is to pick something that you're struggling with and then just affirm yourself that you can take care of it for 30 seconds.
You just don't know what English people are like, do you? We can't do that.
Yeah, I am embarrassed now thinking what I will look like while I'm sat on the sofa saying to myself, not out loud, but saying to myself, you're going to do really well in that presentation tomorrow. You're going to knock it out of the park tomorrow. While I think of myself sitting there, I'm cringing. It's horrible.
Okay, last one then. What do you do when you see someone making an obvious mistake, but you don't want to be a dick about it?
What did I do, Joe? What did I do?
You might see your friend has met a new partner and they're just obviously terrible for them and you just can't say anything because you don't want to be a dick about it. Or someone is looking to change jobs and it's just an obviously bad career move, but you just have to be supportive of them. I don't know, do you ever just bite the bullet and say to them, no, what you're doing is wrong, do this instead?
I feel like my usual MO is to have zero social awareness and make an ass of myself.
That's my MO as well, generally. And I don't know, I just tend to be quite brutally honest with people, I think, and it gets me in trouble quite often.
It seems like if you actually care about a person, right? Like if it's someone that you're like, it's just my coworker, whatever his name is, that I don't really care about, then it'd be like, yeah, man, great. Do the thing you do. But if it's someone that you actually care about, then it kind of seems like irresponsible, or there's something wrong to me about not looking out for other people. I don't know.
We've got this going on in my family that one member of the family was dating someone who everyone else in the family thinks is a dick, and the relationship has moved on and they're living together and, you know, doing the usual family things. And it's really difficult because they're quite young, and you want to say, oh, I made those mistakes when I was your age. I went out with someone who was a gigantic penis, and I learned from it. And, you speak to some people who are like, you've got to tell them. You have to tell them, because they're making a massive mistake and they're wasting chunks of their life, and they may be wasting money, investing like time and money and effort into this other person in this relationship. But then the flip side is everyone's got to live their own life, and you can't tell someone who to fall in love with, and it's really hard to get inside someone's head because they think you're doing it for nefarious purposes. They think you're trying to turn them against their own love interest. And it's really hard to do at that level. If someone's just being a dick online and saying something that you think's out of place, yeah, I'll totally tell them, but I'll do it in private. I wouldn't do it to their face like you, Joe, did to me in a pub and really upset me. That's fine.
Did I?
So there was this guy on Twitter who I don't know at all, and he said something and I thought, that's wrong. That information is not correct. And I thought I could reply to this guy, but it would make him look like a dick, because I had data on my side that proved that the information he had and that he was espousing, that data was just wrong. And so I actually looked him up and found him on IRC, and I PM'd him and said, hey, this tweet that you put out, I have some concerns about it. And I showed him my data and said, I'm not going to out you publicly about this, but you're wrong, and here's the reason why you're wrong. Now, this is where I suffer from XKCD 386, but this guy was patently wrong on the internet. I didn't want people just perpetuating that position and that information because it was wrong. So I messaged him and he was like, oh, all right, okay, I got different data. And he followed up that tweet with another one that said, oh, I've now discovered that this is incorrect information and here's more accurate information. And I felt good. I felt like I'd done something there. But equally, people, from his perspective, he might think, who's this random fucker who's contacting me on IRC telling me I'm wrong in one of my tweets? So it could have gone either way, really.
Did I really say something to you in the pub, or were you just taking the piss?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Stuck with me. You know how sometimes things people say to you in the past, there are some things, I can't remember what, but there's some things I do on an almost daily basis, some just regular home care thing or personal care thing that I do. And almost every time I do it, I am reminded of a conversation that I had 35 years ago with someone. And I hate my brain because it will not let me forget that every single time.
To get back on topic, I feel like when it's especially something that's personal to someone and you really don't want to hurt them, that instead of you really feel like you have to say something, but you don't want to hurt somebody by telling them something. I think the best approach is ask them a question. And I've had friends ask me questions like, do you feel like your life is happier with this person? And I think that that's a lot better than them saying, I don't want you to be with this person, but it's more of I want you to think about it. And if you're happier being with this person, then that's great. But I just want you to actually think about, are you really happier with this person?
Do you think that you're going to be necessarily happier if you quit your job and go on a 2-month silent retreat? Or are you going to be happier if you stay at your job and can pay your mortgage? Isn't that just a passive-aggressive way of telling them straight, though?
Maybe. It depends on phrasing, I think. But I think that if you're coming from the perspective of being a friend that really cares about someone, that having more of a conversation about, are you asking these questions, is a better way to be non-confrontational than kind of asserting that, hey, I am right about this thing and you are wrong and I know better about your life than you do.